What's going on, YouTube? It is November 1st of 2023, and the cold weather has finally started to settle in for a lot of us. So just like last year, we're going to sit down and we're going to kind of talk about a lot of the homesteading stuff I did in 2023, some more lessons learned, some things I have planned for 2024, and just like last year's video, I want to hopefully encourage and inspire more of you to do the self-sufficiency things, and especially for those of you that have the room to or are looking for maybe that little push over the edge to finally move out of the suburban and urban areas into the more rural and slow suburban areas and actually start to, you know, do things for yourself and rely off the land a little bit more. Hopefully this gives you that push. So let's talk about 2023. As much as I've, kind of transitioned a lot of the content around this channel towards more of the tactical civilian in a sense, kind of that more Minuteman essence, that armed and prepared citizen, I still very much am a big supporter of just the general baseline preparedness aspects to, just everyday life in general. It doesn't have to be towards anything tactical in nature, just preparedness in general. And I'm currently working on some stuff behind the scenes to kind of create some prepper guides for the website. And it'll cover a bunch of things, not just food, but it'll talk about water collection, filtration, sustainment, all that kind of stuff. It'll talk about medical, not just the cool Gucci trauma stuff, but even just like how and when to use certain types of OTCs, over-the-counter medications, tools, area studies, all that kind of stuff. Anything that goes into just aiding you as a baseline prepper. I'm trying to work on some content right now to go out on the website that'll be completely free for anybody to view at any point in time. But 2023 has been a really, really busy year. For those of you that kind of know me in real life and not just on the YouTube, or you follow me on Instagram and see a lot of the stuff I post about a lot, I have taken on quite a bit, maybe more than I can chew in 2023. And for the past couple of months, YouTube content and just kind of online activity has been down a little bit. I started paramedic school again. Most of you that have been watching for a while know that, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went into the fire service. And in 2021, I was just finished my prereqs for paramedic school, and I was about to start my first semester of actual paramedic school. And they came out and said that all of the local hospitals were now requiring us to have the vaccine to be, a clinical student in their facilities. And if I didn't get the shot, I couldn't do clinicals. If I couldn't do clinicals, I couldn't do class. So I came into, the moral dilemma of, do I get the shot so I can go through class? Or do I stick to my moral principle? I'm not going to get the shot. And of course, really without question, I didn't go to paramedic class. They were not forcing me to getting that shot by any means. But as of this year, right at the end of summer, they decided to lift that restriction in all of the local hospitals. So I'm in paramedic school again, and boy, has it been busy. Outside of paramedic school, I continue to try and build here on the homestead itself, more garden beds, more fields, more chickens, more just everything. And then, of course, the business. We're in a really weird time where, things are financially stressful for a lot of people. So it makes it hard on small business owners as well. So there's a lot that goes into that. Training with my local guys, I'm always just a huge proponent of, you training locally. But another thing that comes from, getting to know more people in your community and having that reliance network is also just trading stuff that you grow in your homestead to what other people grow. Like this year, one of my buddies that lives in a town, right across the city border from me, he gave me basil and something else earlier this year. I can't remember what it was. Some sweet potato transplants. Sweet potato transplants and a bunch of basil. And I traded him chicken eggs. My basil didn't take well this year. None of my greens really did. And we'll talk about that. But now I had basil to go ahead and dehydrate and turn into my own, seasoning and whatnot for the year. And that's what it's all about. Just being able to trade and kind of become less reliant on the system. You're never going to be completely independent from the system. But, you can work towards that goal or try to mitigate some of it. So that if anything ever happened, the blow probably wasn't as bad as it could have been. But I digress. So let's talk about 2023. In 2023, I expanded a lot here on the homestead. Starting with the chickens, we added more chickens to the flock this year. I have black Australorps, great sturdy bird, both in the hot and the cold. Last year when we had, the snowpocalypse or whatever of 2022, right there before Christmas, when it was down below zero, snow everywhere, so on and so forth. Uh, there actually got some snow in my coop, and they would not come outside the coop in the run to get food, water, nothing. But they braved the storm, they braved the weather, and they made it through. Then we had the dry, hot summer, and just fine. But we added more chicks this year, and we went through two different routes. The first one we did the classic incubator. We collected our own eggs because we have roosters here on the farm, and we did it that way. I also sold chicks to two of my local buddies, so now they have their own flock, or they added to their own flock. One guy, it was their first time having chickens. Another guy just added on to his own flock. So that was very, very cool. I can't remember if I sold a third person or not. I don't remember. Regardless, we sold some chicks. We kept some chicks. And then the second way, we did it naturally. We had some hens that became very broody. So once we noticed that, we were like, we'll add a couple more. Let's do it both ways. I pulled out some eggs. I wrote a date on them, and then every day when I collected eggs, I left those marked eggs there. And the hen that ended up hatching those chicks, we called her Broody. She had 5 very, very healthy chicks. I believe she had 3 boys and 2 gals. So we only ended up keeping one of the roosters around. We had to either get rid of, sell, eat various roosters this year. But that's part of having chickens. But I mean, my chickens have been laying eggs like champs. I have eggs all the time, and they say chickens are the gateway drug, to homesteading and specifically to livestock and stuff. And that's 100% true. If I had more room, I would have so many other different types of livestock around right now. But I love having the chickens here. I love watching them just run around the yard. They eat everything. They eat kitchen scraps. They eat random things they find outside. They eat bugs. They demolish everything. The fruit that falls from the fruit tree, they eat that off the ground. They eat the bugs. They eat the fruit that fell on the ground. Chickens are phenomenal animals. I absolutely love them. I can see them in the background playing right now. It's kind of what I'm looking at. They're playing in a giant pile of leaves. So chickens, awesome. Absolutely love them. I always suggest people to get chickens. The eggs that you get from your own chickens, specifically when you are giving them good, good grain, feeding them, natural foods and whatnot, the eggs are so much better than the store-bought eggs. I know egg prices have come down in 2023 compared to the panic that everybody was in 2022, but they're still so much better. I mean, I've been eating, farm fresh eggs for 2 years now, and I eat, store-bought eggs. I'm like, this is kind of disgusting, really. And most people that buy, eggs from us, even though our eggs are more expensive than the ones you get from the store, I mean, they'll tell you, they're like, these eggs they just taste so much better. I can't go back to store-bought eggs. And not know the difference or can tell the difference. So fresh eggs, it's fantastic. It's an unlimited, protein source every single day. We have 2 roosters and 22 hens at this point. We lost a few hens over the past year, unfortunately. I think we've lost a total of in about a year and a half now. We've lost 5 or 6 hens. We had 2 just randomly die, unfortunately. Sudden chicken death syndrome. And then we lost, I think, 3 to hawks right after Christmas last year. I free range my chickens. And in the winter, obviously, all the green stuff dies and whatnot, and they lose a lot of that natural cover that they have. And the hawks were finally getting to them because I was letting them out first thing in the morning, just always thinking like, oh, nothing's ever happened to them, so I'm just going to keep letting them out first thing in the morning. Well, now I have the rule of if I'm not home or I'm not outside, I don't let the chickens out until at least after lunch, just to kind of prevent some of the hunting from the hawks. Moving along from the chickens, let's talk about the garden. So I added 3 raised beds this year. My raised beds aren't anything too fancy. They are only 6 inches deep. Some people make them a little bit bigger. It's going to be more expensive to film that way, so on and so forth. But if you're on a budget, or maybe you're looking to upgrade properties in the next few years and you're just trying to do what you can now, I get the what is it? It's the 2x6x10s. I'll get 3 of them, and that'll make a raised bed. So I have the 2 10-foot boards that run, and then I take the third 10-foot board and I cut it in half. So then I have a 10-foot by 5-foot raised bed that's 6 inches deep. I'll fill it with a bunch of natural material, whatnot, leaves, random brush, small sticks, whatever that might be. I take the ashes from our wood burning stove in the house. I throw that in there, all that kind of stuff. And then I get an organic topsoil, and I do the very top with that. And you kind of got to continuously add to it because things naturally break down and settle and whatnot. But it's a very effective way of doing it. So we added 3 raised beds this year, and we started our own seeds. We started a lot of our own seeds this year, which I was really excited about. It was really cool to watch them grow. But you got to take care of them, every single day. Every single day, you got to go check on them. You got to make sure they get watered, make sure they're not, picking up any disease or starting to wilt or whatever it might be. You got to pay attention to them. But starting our own seeds this year was really cool. We did that for just about everything. Now, unfortunately, even though I added the 3 raised beds this year, I have 6 here behind me, which is primarily most of like the vegetables and stuff like that, potatoes, and then I have 2 over there down there by my garage, and those were supposed to be for greens and strawberries. Well, in the springtime, I was very, very broke, so I was not able to get strawberry transplants this year. So that one bed that I spent all that time and effort building just sat idle all year until I planted some potatoes in it later. And then the second bed was supposed to be our greens, lettuce, herbs, carrots, stuff like that. And again, this year it didn't take very well at all. One of the big problems was we had a very, very cold spring. It stayed very cold, specifically our nighttime temperatures. We were sticking down in the 30s all the way to like the very end of April. And then it got very hot mid-May. So there wasn't like a very good adjustment period for those greens to get planted. Those of you that have planted greens in the past know that if you're going to start the seeds outside, it's normally done best when the temperature is cool, but not, freezing at nighttime. So, once we got a little later into spring, into May, I tried planting them outside, starting them from seed. Didn't work, and it was already too late to start them from seed. I think what I'm going to do next year is I'm already decided that I'm going to cut up a paper towel roll into like little 1 or 2 inch discs for starting all of my seeds next year. It's so much easier than those little inch by inch plastic trays and whatnot. I think I'm going to do the same thing. Probably at the beginning of April, I'll start a lot of my greens plants inside and just get that seedling started and then transplant them outside once the temperatures have started to stabilize a little bit. We're having a little bit warmer nights. Because starting them from seed outside both years in a row has not worked out. The first year, I got a late start to everything. And then this year, the weather was really, really funky. And then, of course, it becomes too hot. The seedlings won't start. Soil won't stay moist enough. Whatever it is. I didn't get a good start on that. So there is that. However, I did introduce a new tomato this year. We did cherry tomatoes. I expected the cherry tomatoes to be a little bit more viney. They're really more bushy because I planted them on a trellis thinking they'd be like a vine, and that did not turn out that way. However, I loved the addition of the cherry tomatoes to the garden. My fiance specifically likes eating the cherry tomatoes like little pieces of candy, but I figured out a really nice scratch sauce that I can make from all the other stuff we get in the garden. So I saw this thing, I think it was on Instagram or TikTok or something like that. It's basically these, they're called ready sauce bags. And you essentially put all the ingredients for your sauce into the bags. These, vacuum sealed bags. And then you put them in the freezer for the year and you just pull it out, let things thaw out, and you make your sauce from scratch. It's 4 cups cherry tomatoes, a quarter to a half cup diced white onion, depending on how much onion you like. I threw 3 or 4 fresh basil leaves from the basil I got from my buddy. And then I threw 2 to 3 garlic cloves in there as well. Now, whenever it comes out, all I got to do is throw a little olive oil in some pan, throw it all in there, mashed up real nicely, add some seasonings as needed, and now I have a really nice scratch sauce. So I've got probably 20, 25 of those sauce bags alone sitting in my freezer. So that was awesome with the cherry tomatoes. I grew a bunch of Better Boy tomatoes again this year, and I probably won't do that again in the future. It's just not a great tomato for like sauce. Like if I'm using it even for a salsa or a traditional tomato sauce, whatever it is, Better Boys are not the best. You really want more Romas or like a thicker, pastier tomato. So next year I'll probably predominantly do Romas in the larger tomato category. I'll probably throw in a few Better Boys just in case I want to give them away to people for like sandwiches and stuff like that. But we don't just eat sliced tomato here. So I'm not as concerned about having as much of it anymore, and I'd like my sauce to be a little thicker without having to add a bunch of tomato paste, to the sauces once I open up the jars. Garlic, 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 garlic. So I put a video up on my Instagram last year, about the middle of October, about how to plant garlic for the year. Garlic went absolutely fantastic. If I remember off the top of my head, I think we planted 32 bulbs and we got 32 nice garlic plants. I have loved the fresh garlic. It was super simple. It was super. I mean, I didn't have to do anything with them for however long they were in the ground, 7 months, until we harvested them. I took them into the garage. I tied off some 550 cord to the ends of them. I let them hang to dry out and whatnot. Then I just cut all the stems off, took them inside, and they just sit there until it's time to be used. So garlic, will forever plant my own garlic, time and time and time and time again. That will always be a staple. I already got my garlic in the ground. You really need to get your garlic in the ground sometime in October. When you get into November, you run the risk of it being too cold and things maybe not setting, depending on where you live. If you live in the deep south, it's probably still warm down there. But if you live in, Michigan or Illinois, it's already into the 30s and 40s just during the day alone right now. So take that into consideration. You really have to plan out everything, and everything overlaps all the time. You don't have to. It depends on how big your operation is. If you've got 2 raised beds in your backyard where like you grow cucumbers, a few tomato plants, and a pepper plant, then yeah, it doesn't require as much thinking. But like for me, when I'm trying to think like, okay, how do I get as much food out of as much real estate and ground I have here for the next year? Because my goal is just to grow as much food as possible. I don't want to buy food from the store. I want to just grow as much as I can. So more planning will come into that. Moving away from the classic vegetables and whatnot, grew my own potatoes for the first time this year. The potatoes here, so much better than store-bought potatoes. No surprise at all. But the store-bought potatoes were nothing compared to the fresh potatoes. And I grew them from store potatoes. I just went and bought the classic russet potatoes from the store. Put them to the side in a dark, cool place until the little spuds grew on them, and then I planted those. And the potatoes I got from that spudded store-bought potato were so much better and so much richer than what we got from the store. Now, unfortunately, we eat a lot of potatoes, so I'm not in a position to. I don't have enough room to grow potatoes to sustain me for the whole year, but it's nice to kind of supplement it for the time being, and kind of have that ability to grow my own potatoes. But we still buy a lot of store-bought potatoes because we just don't grow enough to completely supplement our potato intake. Tomatoes, potatoes, peppers. Bell peppers were a little more disappointing this year in comparison to last year. We got a lot of small bell peppers. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know. Last year, I felt like we just got a lot of big bell peppers. This year, we got a lot of really small ones that were like 3-4 inches tall. And there was a lot of them, but they grew really slow this year. And I think part of the problem was how dry it was. I mean, it was really, really dry August and September this year, that prime time when plants really started just putting out fruit. And it was dry. I mean, we just couldn't keep the garden beds, moist enough on a normal basis, especially since the garden beds are too far away from our actual house where our spigot is to run a hose reasonably. So we have to take water up there. And I think that impacted our overall yield for all the plants in general, just a little bit. But it was dry. It was a dry year. Corn. Last year, our corn did phenomenal, but we had a very small section. This year, I really tried to expand that. So I tilled a whole new portion this year for the corn. I tilled 2 new portions. I tilled in addition to the field I have on top of the hill. Then on the other side of the property, I tilled a smaller field because I was going to grow field corn, dent corn, which is for feed because I wanted to supplement my chicken feed this winter. Now, the sweet corn on top of the hill didn't do well at all. I think I got like 10 ears of corn the whole year, unfortunately. I think it was a mix of their one being a nitrogen problem, because I had a lot of the compost because I did a no-till last year up there still, so I naturally tilled that into the expansion, but it wasn't enough, and a lot of it was just classic Kentucky dirt. So I don't think the balance was there for good corn production. And on top of that, the grass grew back a little bit, which was to be expected, but I had a very specific weed for whatever reason that grew up into and taller than my corn, and I think it eventually kind of messed with um, the what's it called, pollination process of the top of the corn falling down, and kind of pollinate. Words are hard sometimes. You guys know what I'm talking about. For those that have grown corn, regardless, the weeds kind of messed with the way that the corn was growing. Sorry, sitting outside and recording a YouTube video. I look around and whatnot, and like everything catches your mind. It's like squirrel, and just so then I start trying to understand and process what's going on over here while I'm trying to hold a conversation with you guys. But regardless, corn didn't do great. So that was unfortunate. Next year, I'm probably going to have to add more organic compost into the spring till, and just get some more organic material in there. I think that probably had a big part to do with it, which is disappointing because the corn was really good last year, and we didn't get much of anything this year. The dent corn did okay, but it didn't do great. I didn't have the weed problem on that side as much as I did on the field on top of the hill behind me, but it still didn't produce the best. So I write a lot of it off to the nitrogen issue. Corn requires a lot of nitrogen. Now, however, the pumpkins and the watermelon this year did fantastic. I got a whole lot more pumpkin this year than I did last year. Obviously, I had a little bit more space to work with. I also did pretty decent on the watermelons. Now, we didn't eat as much watermelon this year as I thought we might have, and I think how heavily seeded the watermelons were that we grew ourselves versus a store-bought one kind of deterred us from being like, oh, I just want to eat watermelon. I mean, there's a lot of seeds you got to fight through, but the watermelon was delicious. It was very juicy. It was very tasteful. It was very, very good. And then we grew all jack-o'-lantern pumpkins this year. We didn't grow any sweet pumpkin. So I have a ton of pumpkins still, even after Halloween when we've done some carving with pumpkins and whatnot. But that's fine because I'm gonna make pumpkin bread and muffins and all that kind of stuff throughout the year now. Or during the winter time, I now have the ability to throw out a fresh pumpkin in the dead of winter to my pumpkin to my chickens. Pumpkin to pumpkins, throw a pumpkin to my chickens. So now again, supplementing feed, fantastic. For this coming year, my big plan is to once again try the corn again. I don't know if I'll do strawberries on this property because we are looking to move relatively soon. But I definitely want to give the greens a good hard try again next year. People always say that I don't have time to garden. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that, so on and so forth. And while there may be certain circumstances where that may be true, and I don't have kids myself right now, and kids are a big determining factor, but a lot of this stuff doesn't require that much time. Like, let's say you had 3 raised beds in your backyard. How much time are you really dedicating to that to where it's just like, oh, I just can't possibly tend to my 6 tomato plants, my few pepper plants, and the potatoes I grew, because I would just take so much time away from my kids or my wife or from work I got to do after I get home from work or whatever other responsibilities you have. I mean, really, from spring to about the end of summer, your big things is just weed eat from time to time, and give it a good watering once a day. It takes like 10 minutes. Um, you know, Fall time, things are a little bit more demanding because you're picking things on a more consistent basis. Then, of course, you have to preserve a lot of those items if you have things to preserve. Canning is a long, full day event. There's no reason that says you and the wife or you and the husband or you and whoever can't sit down and can for 4 or 5 hours on a Sunday afternoon. Hey, hun, we're going to can all of the tomatoes into tomato sauce, this Sunday. And next weekend, we're going to do all of the salsa and all the peppers, whatever it might be. You can do it. There is time. The only other big thing that kind of ties into all of this would be hunting. I don't have a ton of land, but I have enough to hunt off of. I can gladly say that since October of last year, I have not bought any beef from the store. We have eaten deer as our red meat for the entire past year. We still have a little bit in the freezer, and hunting season, or at least rifle season, starts in a little over a week from now. I don't do a lot of bow hunting. I do a lot more rifle hunting. But you know, that's fantastic. Think of all the money we saved because I was able to put down, some deer. I took the time to process it. I process all my own deer myself. I don't take game to a butcher or, anything like that. I hang it, I strip it, I clean it, I process it, all of that myself. I do it all in house, which I think more people should do. And that's not to put those that do process deer out of business by any means. There's always going to be a crowd for that. But as far as the self preparedness perspective, even if you don't do it every year, let's say your family kills 3 deer this year, you and your grandpa that hunt or whatever, you put down 3 deer. Why don't you guys keep 1 deer and try to process it yourself and whatnot? Learn that skill and maintain that skill every year. Am I as good at processing a deer as a guy that processes 500 deer in a hunting season? Absolutely not. It is interesting every single year when I'm trying to process my own deer. I process 2 to 3 deer a year, and then I don't do it again for another 12 months. So I'm not going to be as good at it as a professional, but it gets done. So times are times are weird. They are. They're very weird. We live in a weird state of affairs. A lot of us, more and more, do not trust the system that we are surrounded by, that we live in. We don't trust the foods. We don't trust the medicine. And there's a lot more people moving towards that kind of mindset. And I think even kind of culturally, it's good for us to kind of move back to doing more for ourselves and being more self-reliant and not relying on the system and, you know, government and all that kind of stuff as much as we do. I think there is a cultural positive to doing this kind of stuff. It helps you develop community, helps you live a healthier lifestyle. It keeps you active. It gives you something to do with the family. Once I have kids, I 100%, want to get my kids involved with this kind of stuff. And I pray that they are as passionate about this kind of stuff as I am. I don't know if my fiance realized what she was getting into when we started dating, but now she lives in a house in the middle of the woods, and we grow vegetables and eat deer. I don't think that's what she signed up for originally, but that's where she is now, and she loves it, and I love her for that. But do the things, guys. Do the things. Everyone's always got an excuse, but it's what you do when those excuses can be made and you overcome it that really matters and can make the difference. So that's all I've got. Start doing some research. Reach out to various gardening channels. Reach out to us. Whatever it might be. Start planning ahead for 2024 because it's November 1st now, and besides hunting season, we're pretty much done for the year. But come January, February, from a lot of us, we're starting seeds. We're starting to prep new spaces, all that kind of stuff. That's right around the corner. Right now is a great time to go ahead and build garden beds. Yeah, they're not going to get used till the spring, but you let them sit dormant through the winter, kind of start building themselves out, settle, do all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is good to do now. Today I stripped the field on top of the hill, cut down all of the weeds, and it's going to be covered with tarp soon, and then it'll get tilled again in spring. So start thinking about that kind of stuff ahead now, guys. Be more self-reliant and think about this kind of stuff. We talk about tactics and cool guy stuff and gear a lot, but at the end of the day, something that will 100% affect your life that you can guarantee will always have, a place is, your preparedness. And for a lot of us, our homesteading or farming, this kind of stuff will always affect us. So keep that kind of stuff in mind, guys. And as always, train hard, train often.